Hey, welcome to a very special episode of Free Pilot Training. I'm Josh Campbell. This is my friend Seth Lake, who is a DPE, Designated Pilot Examiner. We fly together for the Air Force Reserves, and we've been brainstorming the last couple days how we could bring some students some great online training to help you guys meet your goals. So we thought it'd be really helpful to make some videos together. We're talking about making some future episodes to help students ace those check rides. We decided it would be good to talk about another topic today a lot of students have interest in, and maybe we'll focus on those in the future. And that topic's how I became an Air Force Reserve pilot.
All right, well, yeah, I'm excited to do this, man.
I know, I am too.
We're kind of just talking here, and we were brainstorming yesterday. And we're like, well, you know, you've got a channel, I've got a channel.
Yeah.
We're both kind of interested in, more than interested in. My profession right now, full-time job, is flight training, general aviation, mainly multi-engine training. And then you got the 172.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of great stuff on YouTube with
Thank you.
the pilot training stuff, the free pilot training. So yeah, we wanted to talk today about, you know, it would be great. I think my listeners would like to hear maybe how to get in the Air Force Reserves or how to get in the Air Force in general. So we wanted to have that conversation, like, because you had a different path than I had.
Yeah, for sure.
And we kind of have, between the two of us, you got a 99% solution of
I think
how
so.
to get in the Air Force.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I can't be on a show with the DPE though and not ask a question for my students who are probably thinking this right now. So I'll talk about that, but I can't help but wonder, like, what do students need to focus on more than anything to get ready for the check ride?
Well, it's not like there's this one thing that you can focus on. I'm going to say the ACS.
Okay.
But it's not the ACS. I mean, the ACS is the test, and those are the standards you have to perform to. But if you think about the ACS, you know, you've been on a roller coaster, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You remember when you were a kid and you went on the roller coaster, there was a little bit of anxiety when you showed up to ride because of what? You didn't know if you
didn't know what
could
to expect, I guess.
Yeah, and you didn't know if you could get on, right?
That's true.
What did you have to do to be able to get on a roller coaster?
You just had to kind of have a leap of faith and just do it.
Yeah, but then there's a restriction, right? So every roller coaster has the little line,
right?
Yeah,
a little height restriction.
Yeah, the little height restriction. I remember those, and I remember being a little nervous when I was a kid. I was like, man, am I going to be tall enough? Am I going to measure up?
I remember that.
And as an adult, we don't even think about it. You know, it's like, man, whatever. But the ACS is kind of like that line. It's the line by which you're measured, and it's the minimum height required. It's the minimum standard required to be a pilot. And so if you just try, you know, as a kid, you never thought, man, I hope I'm just right at that line. You were like, I can't wait until I'm just way above it. And that analogy means, like, to me, it's just you want to have mastery of the aircraft. You don't want to just focus on the ACS and just be good enough. So your main focus during your training should be to master the aircraft. And imagine showing up to the ride and being like 5 feet taller than the minimum height restriction, and you're just not worried about it at all. You just walk up, full confidence, get on the ride, and go, you know?
Huh. Yeah,
so you should show up with the check ride with that kind of mentality of like, I am so prepared for this check ride. I'm not worried at all because I am a master of this aircraft. That's what you should be thinking.
That's a really good perspective. And I can't help but think, when I went and got my private pilot's license, you know, I didn't even know what the airman certification standards were. And I felt like the school I went to kind of did a disservice to me. They followed it like a Jeppesen syllabus, and all the stuff that was in the ACS was in the syllabus, but I felt like, where's all this information coming from? And they kind of hid that from me. But the ACS is such a valuable tool that I don't think gets used enough.
Yeah, I mean, the ACS, you know, old school PTS, it was good for examiners because it was kind of open-ended. It was pretty subjective. But the ACS is very prescriptive, and so it's really direct as, I'm going to have to perform all the skills listed that are applicable to the airplane I'm flying when I go to the check ride. So if I read the ACS and just read all the skills, and I know that I can perform all those skills, you know that you can pass the check ride.
Yeah,
I mean, it's that simple.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. Now, I want to ask you about the route you took to get into the Air Force.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because I think I took the more traditional route.
Yeah.
I went in right after college. I went in as an officer, so I guess we need to clear that up. In order to be a pilot, you got to be an officer.
Yeah, in the Air Force you do.
Yeah, in the Air Force. And in order to be an officer, you have to have a bachelor's degree.
Yep,
you have to go to college.
That's exactly right.
So my father was in the Army. He was an officer, so I kind of knew that structure, the military, and I knew I needed my degree.
Yeah.
And I knew that being a pilot was competitive, and I've wanted to fly since as long as I can remember.
Me too.
So my first big goal was to get into college, and then you really, if you know you're going to go into the Air Force after college, you really have kind of two routes there.
Yeah.
That most people take, and that's either ROTC or the Air Force Academy. And I applied to the Air Force Academy. I didn't get in the Air Force Academy, but I also applied for an ROTC scholarship, and I actually got a full ROTC scholarship that paid for, it was a full ride, room and board and everything at the University of Arkansas. Did a 4-year degree, got a pilot slot, so, competed for that and got that right out of college. Went into pilot training about probably a year after I graduated. There's a little bit of delay there we can go into if you want, but it's not one of those things where you graduate and start pilot training the next day.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a little bit of a delay there. Did pilot training in Oklahoma.
Oh, I went to advanced.
Yeah, I was advanced.
Nice. I didn't know you went to advanced.
Yeah, and I only was there for like 8 months because then I went to Corpus.
Oh, okay.
To fly King Airs with the Navy.
The T-44?
It was actually a C-12.
Oh, okay.
The T-44 is the King Air 90.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The TC-12 was the King Air 200. So I was in VT-34 down there.
That's awesome.
I think that was 34, 35. Anyway, that was the turboprop select route.
Yeah.
That used to be there, and it probably wasn't available when you went through.
No, so. They had just canceled that, but at the time, like just prior to that, they were doing T-44s, but that had kind of canceled right before I went through pilot training. So.
Yeah, that was such a good time. I mean, nothing against Oklahoma. I know you're from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, well, I always was, I'm from Northeast Oklahoma, so when I was in Vance, Enid, Oklahoma, I was like, yeah, when we get back to Oklahoma, we're in Oklahoma. So a guy told me a joke. He said, yeah, Enid, there's a good-looking girl behind every tree there.
Yeah, and there's no trees.
There's no trees. Okay.
No, we just lost all our listeners and viewers from
Enid,
Oklahoma.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so another question I had is, what's kind of the biggest thing that helped you by being in the Air Force to transition over as a civilian pilot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously the breadth of experience that you get in the Air Force, because you're flying all over the world. You're flying in the C-130. You're flying all different types of missions.
Yeah.
You don't just have. You're not just always flying from point A to point B. We're doing tactical airlift, or you're landing in unimproved strips. You're working with different users. You're doing airdrop. You're doing night low levels. And then you do oceanic crossings as well. So you get to kind of see all aspects of aviation. And, of course, there's a lot of multi-engine training, and that's what I specialize in now, the Herc's multi-engines, 4-engine turboprop. So you get a lot of good experience with that. And the C-130 is kind of in the same space as the King Air, which people on the civilian side might kind of laugh at because they're like, well, the Herc's gigantic compared to King Air, but really, it's the smallest airlifter in the Air Force.
Yeah, it is.
And we kind of fulfill that same role, and so it actually lends itself really well to general aviation versus like a C-17 where it's more like the airlines. You're spending a lot of time in the flight levels.
Yeah.
You get great at doing that kind of long haul mission planning. But in the Herc, we fly it more like a King Air or like a 206 or something.
I can see that.
We're doing a lot of short hops and VFR.
It feels a lot to me like a giant Cessna 172 with just way more power.
Yeah, that's kind of what it, yeah, I mean, yeah. You can take them to basically the same airports.
Yeah. Just, you weigh a little bit more.
Yeah,
and you got to be careful about that.
Worried about breaking the runway.
Yeah. Okay, so another question I had, and you might get in trouble for this one, but which one's better, active duty or reserves?
Oh, reserves, for sure. I'm not worried about getting in trouble with that at all. No, I tell everybody that's interested, I wouldn't take my active duty career. I wouldn't exchange it for anything. That was a great experience. But, I did 12 years active duty, and it was just time for me to I get a little restless with things. I like having a lot going. I was ready for a different experience. It was just time for me to go. I don't hate on active duty at all. But yeah, the reserves are they're great. It's a great lifestyle.
Yeah, I agree. I was active duty enlisted, and we'll get into that a little bit more here in a little bit, but I loved every minute of it, but it's a different world over here for sure.
Yeah.
So why did you leave active duty?
Yeah, like I said, it was kind of time for me. I was, I've got a family, and I knew deployments are a thing, and they're going to continue to be a thing. And I was seeing friends get, non-voled into 365-day deployments. Yeah. As you get higher in rank, and that was kind of lent to some anxiety. I'm also an Arkansas boy. I basically grew up here.
It is awesome to be able to stay in one place as long as you want.
I made a career at Little Rock, which is kind of rare as an active duty officer. I was in the same base for basically 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And longer than that now in my reserve career. So I'd gone to all the squadrons that I could basically go to. And so it was like, if I stay in, we're going to have to move.
Yeah.
And my kids don't ever even remember moving. That's how young they were the last time we PCS'd.
Good grief.
They don't even remember it. And so
it'd be pretty brutal
to kind of rip them out of the home they've been used to for 10 years. Yeah. It was like, all right, I gotta stay. I didn't have any career aspirations in the Air Force to be like a squadron commander or wing commander,
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed flying, and that's the kind of the nature of the Air Force is the longer you stay in, probably the less you're going to be flying as you get older.
Yeah,
it's a young man's sport, and there's a lot of the young 20-somethings that are coming in. They're doing the heavy lifting. And then when you get your mid-30s and 40s, you're kind of in the leadership role, and you're just not flying as much. And that, I want to fly.
Yeah, me too, for sure. Well, that's all the questions I have. I guess I'm in the hot seat now, so.
Yeah. No, I did this traditional route, or what I looked at. We'd have to look at percentages, but I'm betting it's like 90% of the officers come in through either ROTC or the Air Force Academy. It's something like that. And so you did a different path.
Yeah.
And I just, since I didn't take that one, I just don't know a lot about it. I've got a lot of friends that were either prior enlisted or did OTS and had like a career in insurance and then came in.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. So yeah, tell me about how you... how'd you enlist? What drove you to enlist in the Air Force?
It's funny because like I had no desire to be in the military, as a kid, and then I went and worked in the civilian world as a clothing store manager for like a year and a half, and I absolutely hated it. So I was like, I've always loved airplanes. Maybe I should join the Air Force. That sounds pretty cool. And so I did, and my first base right out of basic training, I was a weapons troop. Went to Aviano, Italy, and was stationed there for 3 years, and I loved it, but we didn't like the idea, married with small kids, we didn't like the idea of being, we didn't know where we could possibly go, and so I thought, well, I love this, and I don't want to completely get out. Maybe I should try this Guard or Reserves thing. And so, I did it. I joined the Guard initially in Tulsa, Oklahoma, actually. Worked on F-16s there, and it was an awesome job. And I couldn't help but think, watching these F-16s fly day in, day out, and I was like, I want to fly airplanes too. And I had always wanted to do it, since a kid. So it was like, that's what I want to do. I'm doing that. But I also had poor vision. And so I didn't realize for the longest time that I could just get eye surgery and then go that route. Because I went and got my private pilot's license during this time because I was like, oh yeah, I want to fly. But I had no idea. And then once I realized all I have to do is get that surgery, I really started focusing on my bachelor's degree. But the funny thing about it is, like, it's kind of a secret squirrel environment, just coming, just going and joining as a pilot because the Navy, the Marines, they don't really do it. You can't really join as a pilot like the reserves, because I called every single one of them. I called the Coast Guard, the Navy, the Marines. I even called the Army, but I didn't really, I don't know. I felt like I didn't want to go that route.
So just to clarify, like when you say you called the Army, you were like 1-800-ARMY and you called and there's like, hello, this is the Army speaking.
I did.
Like, who did you call in the Army?
I went straight to the Be All You Can Be in the Army website and like started clicking on stuff, and I eventually called the recruiter, told him what I wanted. He's like, well, you could do this. I was like, no, I want to be a pilot. And he's like, well.
So, yeah, let's pause there for a second, because I get this question a lot where people are like, yeah, I want to be a pilot. So I talked to a recruiter and I was like, stop it.
Yeah.
The recruiters,
do not talk to the recruiter. They're worst.
Recruiters are great and they serve a purpose, but they are not for pilots.
Yeah.
What's the percentage of pilots in the Air Force? It's only like,
it's very low.
Like
I don't even know.
2 or 3%.
Less than. It's probably
the Air Force component is a pilot.
Yeah.
And so the recruiters their job is to make sure those 95% of the Air Force is manned properly. And so if you talk to them, they can help you become an intel troop or a security forces troop, but they probably can't help you to become a pilot because it's just
so here's an interesting
route,
thing a lot of people don't know is that there are recruiters specifically for air crew.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, so
okay.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know
and
that.
they're very difficult to get a hold of.
Yeah, but recruiters, like reserve recruiters,
so
hard to get a hold of.
I don't tell very many people this, but I actually applied for active duty, Guard, and reserves, and I got picked up on all three at one time or another. And so, like, I did a lot of research in finding out, like, which component I should do, because I had been in active duty, I had been in the Guard, I had been in the reserves, and I knew which ones that I really enjoyed. But I thought, well, what if I don't get picked up on Guard or reserves? I want this active duty thing kind of as a backup. And so, like, usually the way it works is that there's an active duty recruiter. Well, there's a recruiter for a general area. And I can't remember the states. For Oklahoma, he took care of like 3 or 4 states. Just one recruiter for all these states for air crew. And so it was kind of like a secret squirrel process getting a hold of this guy. And like I started out by calling recruiters, and then they direct me to other recruiters, which finally got me to this guy. I mean, this is like a week-long process of getting a hold of just one recruiter. And so it's kind of the same in the reserves as it is active duty. You got the one recruiter who takes care of like a general area. But once again, he's kind of tough to get a hold of. But oddly enough, there's another way around that. And because that's the route I took, is to go around that guy, because unfortunately he's kind of a pain in the rear to deal with. You have to go through him for active duty, but for Guard and reserves.
So let's pause right there. What's the difference?
If you'd like to continue watching this video, click right here or check the link in the description.